Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 220 something Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are got 40 people with us to start. We got a great 2 hours and 20 minutes. We go till 4:20 California time. It's now 2 o'clock California time, but I am in New Jersey, which is at 5 o'clock. We have a tremendous load of stuff to cover today, as we always do. It's great to be back with you. We're going to start with, of course, our poem from our wonderful poet laureate, Mimi German, who's, are you in rattlesnake country, Mimi, or are you back in the city?
I am in the city. I'm having,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm
I
having, hmm
I just read an amazing snippet that may want to you may want to take and have a pet opossum with you in rattlesnake country. That said that an opossum can actually withstand like 3 dozen rattlesnake bites. So you may want to have one with a as a pet out there. We're going to start with the rattlesnake attack on the mayor of Waldport, Oregon. This is going to be an ongoing series with us. This woman, Heidi Lambert, was attacked by her city council, which tried to remove her and had her arrested, ladies and gentlemen. But she's back with us now. Heidi, you are not wearing an orange jumpsuit, so I assume you're free. We're going to talk about that. We're joined by Dick and Sharon, the publishers of LA Progressive.com. We're going to talk with them. Hey guys, we're going to talk with them about many attacks on the judiciary throughout the country, and including we want to talk about the arrest of the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, which is quite an astonishing tale. I think MYLA has a lot of the details. We'll go deep into that. We also want to talk about amazing turn of events in the race for the North Carolina Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court, the election was challenged in an incredibly undemocratic way, but it seems to have actually turned and gone the right way. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about uh, the um, the coming of the new Pope, the American Pope. Somebody today was on the line was celebrating that we now have a Pope who's been to Walmart. I mean, I thought the Pope owned Walmart, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about that in the second hour. We've got the great Carl Grossman with us to talk about nuclear issues. Carl and I were just at a fundraiser with Alec Baldwin and Christy Brinkley in New York City, and that's going to be an interesting part of the second hour. Tatanka Bricka, the chair of the KPFK Pacifica board, is with us, and we have just a wonderful, wonderful crew and we always have a great time with our good friends. Scott Klatt has pretty good knowledge of right wing whatever, so we're going to talk about that. The Walmart Pope. I don't know about that, but we shall see. And I do want to open with the word. He was asked. It looks like a pretty friendly guy. He was walking across somewhere, and the media asked him if he had a word for the Americans, and his word was many. So I guess he's going to, that's one of those cryptic kinds of responses you'd expect from a pope, I guess, and also from a White Sox fan, the poor guy. Anyway, listen, we're going to start now, Mimi. If you will give us your poem of the day, that would be great. And then we're going to move ahead.
Okay, thank you. And thanks everyone for being here today. This poem is called From the Window. From the window. Outside, fear is the sun, and the moon, a moment to pray for survival or for one's demise.
Well, whose demise are we praying for? To interject into a poem, or are we?
You can't interject that way into a poem, but it's easier to when you if you see a poem to answer those things.
Okay, so now
Uh,
did I interrupt the poem?
no, it was over. It's short.
Okay.
It's 7 lines. Hmm.
All right. Well, 7 lines. That's a haiku in 3/4, right?
And you're right, Sluggo. It could go either way.
There you go.
Somebody could be praying for their own demise, depending on, if they've been sent to El Salvador or somewhere to a jail or
Man,
someone else's.
I can't resist mentioning, and thank you for that. I can't resist mentioning that on the front page of the New York Times are two astonishing photographs that defy description. Number one is a gaggle of white South Africans, all white, who have been admitted into the United States, while God knows how many people of color are being turned away and even turned into prisons now. And secondly, is the gargantuan airplane that Qatar, one of the oil states, wants to give Trump so that he doesn't have to lower himself by getting on Air Force One. I guess Air Force One now has become equivalent to riding the subway. And the thing about the plane that Qatar wants to give him is that gets to keep it personally after he's president. Um, so, who can make this stuff up? I mean,
The
if you did
volume
a
is.
novel about this, no one would believe it. So we're going to start today with another story we can't believe. The city council, and we're going to carry this forward. We started this last week. The city council of the bustling metropolis of Waldport, Oregon, um, um, tried to remove and then did have arrested the mayor of the duly elected mayor of the town, Mayor Heidi Lambert, who's with us. And we have had another mayor arrested this week. This is the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But we want to give you time, Heidi Lambert. This is an epic story. And I want to point out, by the way, that the mayoral election and the city council in Waldport is nonpartisan. So you are neither a Democrat nor a Republican, nor a Green, nor a Purple, but you are a nonpartisan. You were elected mayor of this town. The city council. Well, you please explain the situation, and then we're gonna explore this because it's critical as we see elected and appointed officials all over the country now being assaulted. So, Mayor Lambert, what's the scoop?
Well, thank you for having me. A lot has happened since last week. I often say justice takes its own sweet time. But yesterday it came or last week it just came like a storm. So what happened was there was supposed to be a city council meeting last Thursday. And on Wednesday, our DA dropped the criminal charges against me for disorderly conduct, mostly because I wasn't disorderly, but also because I believed I was acting as the mayor. I believed I was still the mayor. And she actually quoted that the charter rule that they said I violated has been deemed unconstitutional. So it was a huge win for me. It was a huge win. So
Is this the
that
district
happened.
attorney of the county? Is this
Yeah,
okay?
the
What's the name of your county?
my county is Lincoln County, and this was
Oh,
Jana
appropriate.
Wallace.
How nice.
Yeah,
Lincoln County. Okay.
so Jenna, she dropped the charges, and I wasn't surprised, but I didn't know when it was gonna happen. Like I kept saying I was in legal purgatory because you just don't know like if you're gonna get dropped or not. So they did get dropped about 4 hours before the city council meeting. But that morning, Thursday morning, the council and the city manager decided to stop having this. They canceled it. They said they weren't going to hold a city council meeting because, well, it's funny because they started to say because the sheriff said he wouldn't arrest me. And so at first they said they had to cancel the meeting because just not anyone can go up to the dais. And they were just like so upset that the sheriff said they would allow me back into my seat. But then as the
Aren't you
day kept
supposed
going
to
on,
aren't you supposed to conduct the meeting as mayor?
yeah,
I mean, aren't you
yeah,
the chief of
yeah,
city? Yeah.
yeah. So I'm going to go do my job.
And
And
when
and
they arrested you, did they demand bail? Did they demand bond?
they didn't even put me in the police car. To be very honest with you, I just was brought out to the police car and then I was cited and then I was released to go back into City Hall. So I wasn't like, I thought I would be arrested. Like I literally had my people's phone numbers, permanently marked to my arm because I assumed I would be going into jail and what that experience would be like. But no, I
Now
wasn't.
remember, people, this is an elected mayor of an American city who's
Yeah.
being put under arrest by a sheriff for what were you charged with?
Disorderly
Littering. I know
conduct.
it was littering, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's like loitering, I guess they call it. So at any rate, so they did so as the day goes on, by evening, the story is they had to cancel the meeting because they were afraid there was a pro-city protest and an anti-city protest. And they were afraid the two parties might brush up against someone and get upset. I mean, they literally said these things. I'm not making this up. Like
I
they
just
literally were like,
posted
what if someone accidentally bumps into someone?
I just posted
Um,
their little Facebook thing that they put out on the chat. So if people want to actually see what they said, it's in the chat.
It's coming up as an HEIC file, so it's not a Facebook link per se. I don't know what that
Oh, well, you can
attachment.
open it. You can open it. It comes
Okay, because
from
I'm getting a download warning,
Okay.
and it's asked me to download. It's not a link, so you need to get a link.
Oh,
You
sorry.
all, you all
Okay.
can just search
Mm.
Heidi Lambert. Actually, I have my maiden name, so it's Heidi Strange Sky Lambert on Facebook. All of these posts, I'm making them uncensored. I'm making them wide open, so anyone from the world can pipe in on there, and some are, which is good. This is a good conversation, right? This is a conversation. So ultimately, what we're dealing with is I have a bunch of counselors who are saying they're afraid of me.
Well, you're
And
pretty fierce looking. I'm kind of afraid just looking at you.
I have always told my kids that words are as strong, if not stronger, than bullets,
What
but
what
never
kind
have
of
I felt so threatening before by my words.
what
It's
kind
just
of
so,
snowflakes are you dealing with there? That's what I'm wondering.
yeah. I mean, I don't
Yeah, I mean,
understand
for
what the
really,
problem
they
is.
get
All right,
get
so
get.
are you going to can you conduct a meeting without the council to get business done?
Okay, so what I did was I put out an email to my council on Saturday that said that we were having a public comment crisis in our town, that there has been 3 months where the city council has closed public comment. And people, this you have to remember, this all stemmed because there was community members who had complaints about the city manager. So I went to the city hall to get those complaints, and that's when I learned those complaints had been scanned in and sent to him, not to me, the mayor, who the complaints were addressed to. And so
Wow.
because I was confused and asked what the hell was going on, they then deemed me hostile, intimidating, aggressive, like all the words you can throw.
Well, it's obvious because of your use of strong language here, but um, uh, so what's the next step now? You've not been arrested. I mean, you've been arrested, but let out, and now are you still facing charges?
So I guess what I forgot to mention that's really important is that the DA dropped the charges on Wednesday. On Thursday, or no, it was Friday morning maybe, or was it Thursday? It was Thursday. It was right before the meeting. The judge she granted me a temporary stay. So while my case is in court, I can keep being mayor. I am still mayor now with a court order, but they are refusing to acknowledge that court order. So that is why on Saturday I demanded that we have a meeting, an emergency meeting, and they're like, no, not until we get this taken to the federal level. And they accused the judge of bias also. So it's just bad.
And what
It's just
judge?
really
What is this a state judge? What level is this judge
It's a
on?
county judge. So this
Okay.
situation is in the county because this is where the situation is. So there's no reason to elevate it out of the county, but they're saying that everyone knows me, that I have friends that are police and judges, and so that I swayed the court. They love the court when it's their decisions, but then when it decides against them, they don't like the court so much. And I
Is
see
it
MYLA.
Well, is there? I'm going to call on Maya in 1 second. I just want to ask you: is there a way that you can call a special election and have these six lunatics on the city manager recalled, or have another vote on this?
So what is also very ironic is that in the state of Oregon, the people cannot remove an elected official for the first 6 months. So again, the people could not even have me removed right now until July. However, because I was wrongfully removed, many people in my community are very upset and they are initiating a recall of all 6 city councilors, but they can't do it until July.
Well, July's right around the corner. That's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It'll time. So give us the date, and we want to focus on the date of your upcoming special election.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I know, I'll let you know
All
for
right,
sure.
please. You keep us
Yeah.
posted, folks. This is America. Remember, I mean, this is a small town, but it's totally consequential here. A right-wing city council, 6 people in league with a hired, I guess, city manager, have attempted to stage a coup d'état against the duly elected mayor of the town, and here she is out of prison. Unlike many other people. MYLA, go ahead, and then we're going to talk about Newark, New Jersey. Although I want to make sure I've got you covered here, Heidi and Mimi. Go ahead, MYLA.
Well, I think that Ras Baraka, the son of the great poet Amiri Baraka, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, the largest city in, the largest city in New Jersey is Newark. He's
Right.
now in the illustrious company of Mayor Heidi Lambert, as having been arrested for doing his job. But I'd like to suggest a buddy system for you, Heidi, that whenever you are interacting with some of these weirdos, that you make sure that you have a witness so that they, their charges of you being hostile or threatening or whatever it is, that you have somebody who can vouch for your demeanor. And I've been following the story on YouTube. So there's a YouTube Facebook page, not YouTube, excuse me, Facebook. And I was following what was going on at Waldport, as there's a page called Friends of Waldport, I believe. And so I just wanted to remind people, if that is a place besides following you, Heidi Strange
Strange Sky.
Hi, Lambert, on YouTube, to also look for Friends of Waldport. And thank you for your leadership. I did have a question, Heidi. Have you looked into the possibility of you as mayor being able to convene some kind of a meeting to hear public comment, or, do you have to have permission from the city manager or the other city council?
So that's a really good question, Mila, because the way that city councils are designed, the idea is that like one person doesn't have all the power and that you work together, right? You collaborate. So in our charter, it says that 2 or more councilors have to request a meeting, a special meeting. And so that was what I was trying to do with my email to council. I was trying to get them to come with me, and work with me. However, the response was not nice. We'll just say that. It wasn't a kind or welcoming response. It kind of was a tantrum, to be honest.
Who threw the tantrum?
The council president, his name is Greg Dunn, and he literally is just like, I'm not gonna apologize. I'm not. And never did I ask for one, So it's just like bizarre to me. So anyways, I'm
Heidi,
laughing. I'm laughing because of this tag that came up on chat where it says Heidi Hydro Shock Strange Sky. That was my old anti-nuke name. So it's kind of cute that Facebook still has me up there as that.
Well, listen,
Um,
as a private citizen, Heidi, you can call a meeting. You don't need to be calling it as mayor. Just, pay a rental fee for the town hall or go in the local theater and just have a meeting.
so there is a group here that is defending just really all of the justice of Waldport. It's not just my situation, but it's called Justice for Waldport. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to call a town hall and they're going to host the town hall and they invite folks to come to it and I can go to that town hall. But I don't think that I can call a town hall by myself. So I'm trying to do it, within the rules or whatever.
Well, I think as a suggestion, you should advertise that Bruce Springsteen will be there. That'll kind of build the attendance. But with 67 people with us, this is really fascinating. I mean, it's surreal to be talking like this, but about an American community. I've never heard a story like this, but here we are. So, Mike Hersh, you have a hand, and then as I said, we have 67 people with us. We're going to go. Dick and Sharon are going to join us soon, and we're going to talk about Ras Baraka and what happened in Newark with the world's largest non-functional commercial airport. I mean, I was just in Newark Airport, and I will not fly out of Newark Airport now, but that's the next topic. Mike Hersh, go ahead. And Dick and Sharon, if you want to jump in, especially on Ras Baraka, that would be fine. Go ahead, Mike.
Just a couple of things. Heidi, you could have a block party or something and just have an informal discussion and involve your community with what's going on. Allow them to understand the dysfunction on their city council. And that might be a good opportunity to pass around clipboards with petitions, hint, hint. And in terms of this kind of, I don't know what you call it, insurrection, rebellion, whatever, against elected officials, Sluggo, correct me if I'm wrong, but towards the end of Reconstruction, there were multiracial legislatures in the South, and there were relatively progressive governors in certain states, and unrepentant Confederates used violence to attack and chase people out of the state. So this is hearkening back to a very dark time in U.S. history.
Yes, duly elected. The worst of them actually was I think in 1898 in Wilmington, North Carolina. 200 people were killed, but it happened all over, especially Louisiana, where
Yes.
the Reconstruction legislatures were assaulted by the Klan.
Yep.
And I mean, the Heidi, who knew that there was a Klan chapter in Waldport, Oregon? But that's how these guys are behaving. This is the kind of thing that the Ku Klux Klan used to end Reconstruction. And the guy who really was the great hero of Reconstruction was U.S. Grant. He hated the Klan, and as long as he was in the White House, Reconstruction was fine and moving right along. And then in came Rutherford B. That's a whole other story. But you have a chance to be U.S. Grant here. Since you're in Lincoln County, you should get one of your cohorts to dress up like Abe Lincoln and come to your town meeting. But you should call the town, and when you call a town meeting, put it live on the internet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. And I'm in the parade, so I have to come up with a float idea. So maybe I will dress up as Abe Lincoln.
And Sluggo, this could be the clueless Klux Klan.
Yeah,
Clueless Klan. Yeah, Sluggo, Scott Klatt
wants to have a question, Heidi.
Scott, go ahead, please. Scott Klatt.
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, sounds good. I got a couple questions for you, Heidi. First off, I understand you were sort of drafted to be elected mayor. What was the concerns of the citizens when they asked you to run for mayor?
So I guess that's correct. I don't know if I would use the word drafted, if not more like just strongly encouraged. But I think what happened was,
well, the military strongly encouraged me to go to Vietnam, but I wouldn't do it. So why don't you?
Well, I have young kids. I mean, they're not young, they're young adults. And this was their first time voting, and they didn't want to vote. They just really want to just burn their ballots. So I just really wanted to do it for them to give them a reason to vote and to show them the power of their vote. So that was really why I was strongly encouraged. But also, what we had seen is a bunch of folks who grew up here, who are now in their 30s or 40s, were all on council. So we had this little clique of high school girls on council. And then we had a bunch of folks who just been on council for a really long time. And so we just, as a community, felt like our voices have been silenced. There wasn't much public input. There wasn't, any ice cream parties or block parties or, anything really. We just all kind of got shut out. So that was really the leading reason of why I ran, because I really truly believe that democracy doesn't work unless people are involved.
Well,
Gotcha.
that's for sure. And go ahead. Did you have another one, Scott?
Yeah, I do have another one. Do you know, obviously you probably do. I know that this is I know a little bit about your attorney in that he covered kind of sort of a similar case in Corvallis with a city council member who got ousted, at least for temporarily. And I know in that case, the city of Corvallis had an insurance policy that paid all legal fees from the city of Corvallis's side. Do you know if that is the case in Waldport?
So I believe all county and city governments have insurance through, they call it county city insurance, CIS.
Mhm.
What was so interesting about that case was,
Oh, she died.
Oh, no, she
But
didn't
don't
die.
say that, Scott.
No, she went blank on us here for a
That's
moment.
all right. We'll get her back. It's
We'll get her
Waldport.
back.
Amazing they
And
have internet.
and I have to ask, what team is on your hat there?
That is the Maple Leafs. I
Oh,
wore
all
that
right.
for Mimi because I know she's a Flyers fan and she doesn't remember what the playoffs are like. But
Uh-oh, that's a dig. That's a
Right
Philadelphia
now.
dig. Just remember that Philadelphia won the Super Bowl this year.
yeah, no one
And
cares.
Jalen Hurts,
Do you
God
like
love
my
him.
playoff beard also, Mimi? I know
Okay,
it's
well,
awful for
Jalen Hurts,
54, but
the quarterback for the Eagles, refused to go to the White House to meet Trump. So we're
no,
double.
I do like Philly. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're double on that one. When the mayor comes back, maybe somebody should go up there and check on her safety. I do want to turn to Dick and Sharon, and we want to move into unless you have another thing, Scott, we want to move into the discussion of what happened in Newark and what's
Yeah, no,
happened to judges all over the country. Dick and Sharon, are you guys ready to jump in here? Yeah. Dick, you win again. I think this is the second week in a row you've won the best shirt contest. So that's a nice one. But we have this situation which MYLA Reson mentioned of the mayor of Newark, and I watched the video of that, and he says it was not even a demonstration. He was just standing there, and they picked him up. And then you've been working with Bill Blum on other instances of fascist repression against elected officials and against lawyers. So I do
that
want to point out in the second hour, by the way, we're going to talk about the Pope, and then we're also going to talk about a new game plan for a progressive agenda going forward with Rob Call from Op-Ed News. So everybody, please do stick around. Dick and Sharon, you published this
And
great.
the mayor is back, by the way.
Oh, Mayor, I want you to meet Dick and Sharon from the LA Progressive. And they have been talking with the great Bill Blum about repression against other elected officials and against lawyers. Go ahead, Dick and Sharon, please.
Okay, so hi, this is Sharon, and Dick is my husband. We're the co-founders of the LA Progressive. The LA Progressive is a daily digital progressive, a politically progressive magazine, and we've been publishing for 18 years.
Wow.
And we do interviews, and we have a podcast, and pretty much any social media platform. If you search, you'll find LA Progressive is there as well. There hasn't been a lot of movement on what's happening with the judges, nothing new, but we had an interview with Bill Blum yesterday, and Bill is a regular contributor to the LA Progressive. He's a former judge himself. And we were talking about two things. One is the suspension of habeas corpus, which Stephen Miller from Trump's administration introduced the idea, and he keeps hinting at it. So that was one of the topics that we discussed at length with Bill yesterday. And then another thing that Bill really wanted to talk about, and it's weighing heavily on his heart, and that is that the GOP plans to steal the 2020-26 midterms. And he talked about the Trump's executive order that is going to help to push that through, as well as the SAVE Act, which is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. Dick, you want to expand upon that?
Right. So these are traditional GOP strategies to limit the vote, particularly among poor people, Black and brown people. But this is on steroids. And basically what both of them do, especially the SAVE Act, is make it much harder to qualify to vote. You have to have a passport, you have to have a birth certificate, and some significant percent of mostly less wealthy people don't have those handy and couldn't find them easily. So that's a way to cut down on the more progressive voter group. One thing that's interesting to me about this whole thing, it used to be, we've kind of flipped things. It used to be that the federal government came riding in to save the day around discrimination issues. We all recall Eisenhower sending the National Guard into Little Rock to oppose FAUBAS so that school there could be desegregated. Same thing with James Meredith at the University of Meredith, Mississippi, also the National Guard. And I think it was Kennedy that stood up to George Wallace at the University of Georgia. And now we have it's the reverse. Thugs representing the federal government are coming in and arresting mayors, intimidating people, even Stephen Miller's thing. That might just be a wild hair, but it's a threat. And what we've learned about Trump's threats is if you don't stand up to him, he'll carry forward with them. He's not all that serious about making Canada the 51st state, but he'll try it if people don't fight it. Same thing with Greenland. It actually seems feasible to me that he would send in our Navy to Greenland unless we say, ain't no way, not on our watch.
Right. And I mean, you introduced us, Sluggo, talking about the Newark mayor. But one bit of information that has changed is that the Trump administration is actually threatening now to go after the congressional representatives that were present with the mayor. They're saying that they're looking at arresting these Congresspeople as well under the same charges as the mayor.
And that's another threat, because unless we stop that, well, they won't stop with 3.
Yeah, they're
every time AOC opens her mouth, they'll have the gendarmes in her office carrying her away.
I mean, they're very typical bullies. You give them an inch, they take a mile. You really have to stop them. Now, I want to just talk briefly about the writ of habeas corpus. So Stephen Miller, a member of the Trump cult, he has come out and said that Trump is considering suspending habeas corpus. And so what is a writ of habeas corpus? It is a document that is basically a legal order that requires the authorities to bring a detained person before a court to determine whether or not their imprisonment or detention is lawful. So basically what it does, it prevents people from being arbitrarily detained for no lawful reason. You can't just grab people up off the street and throw them into prison. And that's the purpose of having this instrument that is called a writ of habeas corpus. It has existed since the beginning of this country. And never, well, except for one time, has a writ of habeas corpus been suspended. There are conditions when it can be. During war or rebellion, and not just war or rebellion somewhere on the globe, war or rebellion here. So, war or rebellion, a national emergency, or a threat to public safety. President Lincoln did suspend the writ of habeas corpus during the Civil War. That's the most famous time when that has happened. But what Stephen Miller and company are doing is they're trying to use language that would convince many that we are under a public safety threat because of these gangs that are coming across the borders and all of the fear mongering that they do to create this sense of, oh, we are not safe. And so maybe it's time that we suspend the writ of habeas corpus.
Right, and they're saying, oh, don't worry, American citizens. We're only going to use this on undocumented aliens. Only people are here illegally. But you watch, if they get away with that, it'll quickly expand to anybody. And you can imagine if there's a big demonstration out in front of the White House, as there was 5 or 6 years ago, they would rush in there with the 82nd Airborne and snatch up everybody and toss them in jail until they felt like letting them go. I think it's, you know, I think, what's his name? Not Harvey, but
Sluggo.
Sluggo said that, you know, it's hard to believe this. It's impossible to believe this. If we live out here in Los Angeles and if a screenwriter neighbor of ours wrote this up in a screenplay, it would get soundly rejected. It's too crazy.
Well, there was a book written by Sinclair Lewis called "It Can't Happen Here," and you know, that was in the 30s. He portrayed a fascist America. And Heidi, I want to ask you, Mayor Heidi of Waldport, are you an undocumented alien?
No, but what they could do to me, they can do to anyone.
Well,
so that is where I'm at.
When they arrested you, did the sheriff read you your rights?
Yeah, they did. They read me. I actually wouldn't refuse to get up until they did read me my rights. So that's, I guess, what made it like officially I was being arrested. I wasn't trying to fight or, you know, I was just trying to sit in my chair. So when they told me I couldn't sit in my chair and read me my rights and told me I had to be escorted out of the room, there was a piece of me that wanted to just like go solid and make them carry me out. But then there was like the other piece of me that was like, okay, like we'll just go. But there was at least 50 people in the court, in the city hall, just shaming the council for having me removed. I mean, just literally yelling, shame, shame. And that's, I guess, what I'm getting accused of being dangerous with is that people are mad.
Well, when you say you were sitting in your chair, was that the chair of the mayor of Waldport that you were sitting in?
Well, honestly, they took my chair away, so there was no chair there. But I asked the crowd if someone would give me their chair because all of the chairs had been taken, you know, were seated, and someone gave me their chair, and so I just pulled it over really quick and sat in it. And they said that was, you know, stopping the meeting. So
this is you have to have a town meeting which is videoed live for the internet, and we will figure out a way to, you know, put it on YouTube and run it in real time. I mean, this is really amazing, and you know, it's all too common now in Trump's America. We want to jump to Newark. We have 72 people with us. Steve Caruso, Mike Hersh, and Mimi, you want to speak, and then we're going to continue this in Newark. I know that MYLA, you paid pretty close attention to what happened in Newark, so maybe you can give us. I watched the video. He was not. This was not a civil disobedience in Newark. He was just standing there in neutral territory, and the same with the Congresspeople. They were not breaking the law, and yet they were arrested. And that's interesting what you say, Dick, about, you know, Trump going after the 3 Congresspeople. It's amazing. And before I forget, I want to mention this attack on this requirement for ID to vote actually is a major attack on women, because so many women in America have changed their names when they got married and do not have ID birth certificates in their current legal name. And the one group that is most anti-Trump in America is women. And if they can disenfranchise a substantial percentage of women going into the 2026 election, it's going to have a huge difference. Okay, Steve, Mike,
Can I break in with something?
Yeah, please go ahead. Sluggo.
Sluggo.
Think baseball.
Yeah,
Think an old guy remembering the days 50 years ago when he used to play ball. That's Sluggo. Okay, go ahead.
got it, Yogi. So in a different administration, we would think this would be a big egg on their face, a horrible thing. Their people went down and embarrassed them. Not so. This was a message. This was a message to people like the mayor and all the members of Congress. You mess with us, we're sending the thugs in by the dozens in masks with guns, and they'll mess you up and put you away for a while, and you won't like it. It's just like that horrible way they treat the people that they take down to the prison in El Salvador, bent over and shaved their head. Does any prison ever do that? They don't need to do that. They do that because in big letters it says, "Don't screw with us."
Exactly. Mike Hersh, Steve Caruso, Mike, Nathan, and Mimi, or vice versa. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, addressing the ID issue and voting, a woman called in to Tom Hartman today. She was a school bus driver, tried to update to a real ID and was denied because her wrongly named marriage certificate she had changed was lost in a fire. And she lost her commercial driver's license because of that. Now she can't work. Her husband's expired. So, these are the real world implications. This is just one little incident of these Nazis doing what they're doing. And that's what they are. If RT was here, I'd call you to your face, you're a Nazi. If, Donald Trump was here, I'd call you to your face, you're a Nazi. If Stephen Miller was here, I'd call you to your face, you're a Nazi. And that's what you are. You're fascists. This is what we fought World War II over. You're done. Start counting your days. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Hersh, I know MYLA is waiting to talk about Newark. Let's go through real quick. Mike, Nathan, Mimi, and then we'll go to MYLA.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We need to call things what they are. We can't tiptoe around this. And the fact of the matter is, when Hitler was rising in Germany, there were a lot of Americans who were sympathetic to that. They marched, they rallied in Madison Square Garden. They marched down the streets of New York City. There were Nazis who marched in Skokie, Illinois. I'm not saying that they don't have First Amendment rights, but I am saying that we have to watch out for fascists among us. And they're very aggressive and they use fascist tactics, surprisingly enough, whether it's Joseph McCarthy, whether it's the John Birch Society, which became
Hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody. I like
Okay.
this nice
Okay.
meeting.
Can we please mute that person?
Okay, it's so nice.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's Bob.
yeah, there
Okay,
we
go ahead.
go. There's people trying to shut down our free speech by being jerks. We aren't going to have
Okay.
it. So anyway, long story short, if it's the John Birch Society, the Tea Party, MAGA, whatever name they call themselves, the Proud Boys, these are the brown shirts, American brown shirts. They are literally on the march. They're using violence and intimidation. Mimi and I have discussed this. She's gotten in the face of some of these local fascists. And and Sharon and Dick, thank you so much for being here. I've been a fan of yours for so many years. You guys are absolutely amazing. And you told it like it is. If you don't stand up to these bullies, they're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. There's no such thing as compromising with Nazis. Literally not. We remember, real quick, Sluggo. We remember what happened when the British thought they had peace in our time with Hitler, that they had come to some kind of a compromise with Hitler. You cannot compromise with Nazis. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That was succinct and to the point. Mimi, Paul Newman, and then we're going to go. Sorry. MYLA was before everybody else. So Mimi and then MYLA, please.
Okay, MYLA, if you're talking about Newark, can I jump in before you? Oh, okay. I just wanted to say, Dick and Sharon, exactly what you were saying about, the whole, it's the language that they use, that the oppressors use. And the language that they use is exactly in the response that Heidi received, which is, I'm looking at it right now. We've been informed by the DA that they won't be able to reliably prosecute charges brought by the local sheriff's office, blah, blah, blah. We feel the safety and security of the meeting cannot be ensured. There's zero proof. The DA dropped the charges. The judge said to them, this is unconstitutional, what you've already done. And they come back at it as if none of that occurred. And they're fearing for their lives, which they know is untrue, and we know is untrue, but the people who are looking from the outside don't know.
Thank you. Okay, Myla, and then we're going to go after you, Myla, to Nathan and Paul. But Myla, you've wanted to talk about Newark, so let's hear it, please.
So I can provide a little backstory for those who haven't been keeping up. But basically, Newark, New Jersey, which is the largest city in New Jersey, has a facility that had been, it's a rather large facility. It had been a halfway house, and it's multiple stories, and they were operating, and there was a certificate of occupancy where they had gone through years ago, making sure that there was that it was safe. So the fire department would inspect it to make sure that that everything was okay, and that the elevator was working, and that people could get out in case of an emergency. And the last time it was inspected, it's my understanding, was about 10 years ago. And so the Trump administration decided that they would use this facility that was no longer in use as an ICE detention center, which could detain approximately 1,000 people, it's my understanding. So it's relatively large. And so the city of Newark has been engaged for a little while now, trying to make sure that the facility is up to code, that people who are detained there are safe, and that they can, just standard procedure in terms of inspecting the facility to make sure, because they have an obligation, because this facility is within the city of Newark. So it has been it's been turned into an ICE facility, and there is a private company that Geo Group that is making a whole lot of money from the federal government to detain people in this country. And they have been refusing to cooperate just with the simple requests of the city of Newark to do their job, and to make sure that the facility meets certain standards. So the mayor, Ras Baraka, the son of the fabulous poet Amiri Baraka, has been trying to gain access to allow inspectors to go in and certify the facility is safe, so that they have been operating without what's called a certificate of occupancy, which they would receive once they passed all of these various inspections. And so they've been stonewalling him. They haven't been allowing the city to inspect. And so working with several congresspeople from New Jersey, they decided, the congresspeople decided that they would inspect, because they have a right to make an unannounced inspection. As congresspeople, they can provide oversight, and they are duly, it's actually part of their job to go and inspect these facilities, and they had inspected other facilities, and it's kind of a normal thing. And they coordinated with Mayor Baraka to make sure that the facility was up to code, and that the people who were being detained there were safe. So the three congresspeople, one of them, 80-year-old cancer survivor, Coleman, Representative Coleman, and two others, went down there. They arrived, and they said, "We're here. This is the law, is that you let us in and we can inspect." And they were basically kept waiting for a couple of hours. And Mayor Baraka went down. It's my understanding that he went down because he was they were planning to conduct a press conference after the congressional delegation had gone through the facility, but it was just kind of a really bizarre chain of events where initially the Congresspeople were not allowed to conduct their inspection, and during this interim period of time, someone from the facility invited Mayor Baraka inside of the gates, and then they asked him to leave and said that he was trespassing, so he left of his own accord. And he was waiting to be reunited with the Congresspeople when all of a sudden we believe there was a call from Alina Habba, the former lawyer for some kind of a strip mall, who has now been appointed as something like Attorney General for that area. So she decided after the fact that she would have them arrest Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark, for trespassing, even though he had been invited in and had left when he was asked to leave. And he was on public property in the city of Newark. And this most bizarre scene developed. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around why the Congresspeople responded as they did. But they decided that Ras Baraka was not safe, and that to protect him, the three Congresspeople would surround him so that the people who were asked to arrest him could not get to him. And I'm not exactly sure who they were. Homeland Security officers, I suppose. They roughed up this 80-year-old Congresswoman, Coleman, and shoved another Congresswoman, and arrested Mayor Baraka, and he was detained for a couple of hours, and it's my understanding he said that he was really treated respectfully during his detention. But just handcuffing him and arresting him was completely inappropriate. It was an act of intimidation, and I guess that's all I have for now. If you have any questions, I know I have a few more details, but I think that's
the question is, should we fly Mayor Heidi Lambert to Newark, or should we fly Mayor Ras Baraka to Waldport, Oregon? We need an exchange program here. We should try and get them together maybe next week to Zoom together. I mean, this is astounding, coast to coast. And I'm by the way, I'm in Teaneck, New Jersey right now, 20 minutes from Newark. So this is down home.
That's a great idea.
Let's link you guys if we can. But this is MYLA, thank you for that. I mean, I saw the video. It was, but I couldn't figure out what was going on. I'm glad you were able to. Dick and Sharon, this is a real hook for you guys to link these two together at LA Progressive.
I would actually like to interview both Mayor Lambert and MYLA and have you guys both relay what you've just relayed to us in a LA Progressive interview and article. I'd love to do that. MYLA, that was fantastic. And Mayor Lambert, you have been awesome in explaining to us how quickly and easily we lose our civil liberties and civil rights. When we stand around and don't say anything, they'll keep going further and further and further.
Right. Yeah. And I want to point out one thing that, Trump's poll ratings are way down now because of the economy, primarily. And I remember all too well the first couple of years of Reagan's presidency. And he was in the tank because the economy crashed when he came in. But when it came back, his poll ratings went way up. That's not impossible for Trump. We have to be very aware of what's going on here. I think it's unlikely. He's really doing a good job of destroying the American economy, but who knows?
That's right. And the American people have a very short-term memory. So this new deal that he's talking about with China, even if there is a temporary boost to the economy, the American people will just forget about, what's happening with arresting judges and violations of civil liberties and civil rights and talk of suspending habeas corpus. All they really care about is my 401k okay?
Yeah. Well, if you have a 401k, I do want to very quickly slip in before we lose track. There was a horrendous attack on the election of a woman to the North Carolina State Supreme Court, where a Republican, and this is nonpartisan overall, but the Republican tried to get to do what something similar to what was done to Mayor Heidi, which is to negate her election to the North Carolina Supreme Court. And he went to all sorts of legal machinations. He finally ran into a Trump-appointed judge who stopped it. And the Republican just a couple days ago conceded. And I have a very good friend in North Carolina. I don't know if she's on. Karen, Laura, if you're on.
Sluggo, real quick. The mayor has to leave in 5 minutes. So if you want any last words before she.
Yes, but the Republican conceded, and the woman she's a Democrat, but has been seated on the North Carolina Supreme Court, which was my friend in North Carolina predicted that would never happen, but it has. So, resistance does have a place here. Real quickly, Mayor, and then we can go to Paul Newman, Lynn Feinerman, and Mimi, and Dana.
And Nathan.
Annie.
Nathan has been on the queue for a long time.
Nathan, yes, Nathan, please.
Nathan
But go ahead,
left.
Mayor, if you have to leave, give us the last word. We also have Lee Felsenstein on, and we want to talk with Lee and MYLA about some of the ideas we had on tracking the data from these mass rallies. We'll do that in a few minutes. So let's get through this. Lee, if you can stick with us, that would be great. And we'll wander into the second hour where we'll talk about the Pope. And then Rob Call is going to give us a progressive plan for the coming whatever. So go ahead, Mayor. Did you want to say something? You're going to come back next week.
I am. I'll come back next week.
Yeah,
and
we're going to continue to do this. And we do want, I'll see if I can line up Bruce Springsteen to come to your next town meeting, but we do want to run it live. So go ahead.
I just wanted to, I wanted to say thank you to Scott about asking those questions. And I'm sorry I got abducted by aliens there for about 2 minutes, but they brought me back. But if Scott wants to email me personally, I would be happy to talk to him about the city insurance. And we can talk about it next week too. And happy birthday, Sharon. Thank you for spending your birthday with us.
Sharon.
And fighting for justice.
You're finally old enough to get a driver's license. Good for you.
So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all, and I have to go back to my day job now, but I'll see you guys Monday, and please feel free to email me if you need me. Okay? All right.
We'll see you at the top of the hour in a week, and we'll have undoubtedly more arrests to discuss, and we'll see if we can get to the mayor of Newark. Thank you for that.
I think maybe I should start a club, like the Arrested Mayor Club, right?
Well, no, absolutely, you should, most definitely.
Okay, now I'm not alone, so we can even invite judges, I guess. And
well, unfortunately, that is the case. Judges are being doxxed, and they're not. The new tactic is to deliver pizza to judges' houses that are, in my case, as long as there's no cheese on it, it'd be fine. But what can I say? Okay, thank you, Mayor. We'll see you next week. We appreciate it,
thank you.
And keep up. Nathan, and then Paul, Lynn Feinerman, Mimi. We still have 76 people with us. Go ahead, Nathan.
Nathan is gone. I think if it's the same guy, works for Election Truth Alliance, which is sleuthing the data on the 2024 election. He's getting more and more groundswell as he pulls the data out and finds that there's this Russian hook into it, leading to a vast increase in Republican votes at the last minute on election day.
Right.
So If he
All
comes
right, we'll
back,
deal with
I
that.
have to pay attention. I should have known who it was. It kind of hit me. I said, Nathan Taylor, I think I know who that is.
All right, well, see if you can track him down. We'll have him back next week, please. Paul Newman, Lynn Finerman, and Mimi, go ahead. And then Danny.
Yeah, I just first want to thank MYLA and also Dick and Sharon and the mayor for saying what they said. It was just really wonderful. Now, but for Dick and Sharon, I just want to say what's been going on with ICE, a lot of this and most of it is illegal. So what they're actually doing is they're kidnapping. So you need to replace the words with, abducting to kidnapping, because they're breaking the law without a doubt. And they're warrantless, most of them, or they have a piece of paper that doesn't have a signature by a judge. So, I mean, you got to change the nomenclature, because it is absolutely, imperative that the public hear this, that it's against the law and they're breaking the law and they should be dealt with for kidnapping. That's the first thing. Now, second, I want to recommend, and it's very pertinent to what's going on now on Netflix. There's a series about the Cold War, but really it applies to everything that's going on now. It's called Turning Point. And it's a series on the Cold War. It goes far back to the invention of the bomb, to the Rosenbergs and Julius's wife, who was unjustly convicted and killed. Ethel, right. And it goes there. It goes to the McCarthy era, the red baiting, even in the 30s, all that stuff, when the Communist Party was in the United States. But also it covers, it covers Putin and how he gained power. It talks about perestroika, how Gorbachev finally gave in. But what was really cool about it, they talked about all these East Germans going down to Leipzig and protesting. And the courage I'm seeing in the Eastern Bloc is absolutely amazing. These are people who were oppressed, and they got out there. And you can learn about their resistance, which could be applied here, which I think is just amazing. So I highly recommend seeing Turning Point on Netflix. And
I saw it. It's very, very good. Turning Point, really worth watching.
What was interesting though is how in Leipzig they all had candles. They lit candles, and they were, there was peaceful protesting, and they all did it, and very few people got hurt. But it showed there was, the candlelight and all the people at night, and they stayed up practically all night. Showed the courage they had when they protested.
Right. It's amazing. And you also got to remember that the McCarthy era, the guy that was most behind the McCarthy era was Roy Cohn, who was, Joe McCarthy's lawyer and who was Donald Trump's godfather. And I strongly recommend everybody see the movie The Apprentice about Trump and how he was raised by Roy Cohn and then turned on him. But the portrayal of Roy Cohn by the actor Jeremy Steele, he really should have got the Academy Award. But so please do see that movie. Thank you, Paul Newman, for that. And Dick and Sharon, I think you probably know Paul, but he's your constituent in Santa Monica there and does have solar panels on his roof. Lynn Finerman, you have a radio show, and always great to see you. And then we'll go to Mimi, Danny, Mimi German again. And then we're going to go to Lee Felsenstein to talk about our tracking mechanisms for rallies. And then we'll talk about the Pope and game going forward. Lynn Finerman, please.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the mention. And hopefully someday you actually will see me again when we stop being doxxed. I just want to emphasize that when the spokeswoman for the Trump administration got on the air regarding the arrest of Ras Baraka, what she said was that the Congresspeople were body slamming the ICE agents. That is what she said literally. And this is just right out of the playbook. It's right out of the fascist playbook that the police use all the time, that the person was resisting arrest, that they pulled out a weapon et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the classic blaming the victim mode of operation. And I think that we need to challenge that. We need to demand the evidence in that respect. That's all I just wanted to add with regard to the arrest of the mayor of Newark.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate it, Lynn. And your show is called, what is the show called?
Women Rising Radio, www.womenrisingradio.com. Thank you, Hart.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to point out my buddy Tatanka Bricka is with us, Carl Grossman, and we're going to go to Lee Felsenstein, who Tatanka brought us to talk a bit about our project and tracking people who come to the rallies. Mimi, go ahead. Mimi from California. Are you unmuted, Mimi? You're from Indivisible. Indivisible, right?
Yes, I just got unmuted. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I had wanted to mention about the arrest of Mayor Baraka in New Jersey. I think it was Alan who mentioned yesterday on the PDA town hall that 1,000 people showed up very quickly there at the facility. And I'm afraid our news is very much siloed in this country still. So I don't know a lot about that, but that was just the amazing thing to do. And then the lady who just spoke before me, we're seeing, okay, there's not accusations of body slamming, air quotes, right? But we're seeing that at the local Tesla takedowns that, you know, these dumb thugs show up and they're trying to get videos that they can get clicks, blah, blah, blah. And they say, oh, don't touch me and all this stuff. And it's very well-known tactics. So just be careful, everybody. Thank you so much, Sluggo.
Thank you, Mimi. Keep up. And we want to talk a little later about Gavin Newsom's escalated attack on solar energy in California. You know, he's outdoing Donald Trump in his attack on renewables, and we want to get to that before the end of the second hour. Donnie Giuseppe, and then Mimi German again, then Vanakali, and then we're going to go to Lee Felsenstein. Actually, we'll go to Lee right after Mimi because he's been waiting. Donnie Giuseppe?
Yes, I'm Daniela Giuseppe. I just put my name for short, Dani. So I knew you years ago, Sluggo, when you were by your real name, and you looked very different then, and so did I. I would put on my video, but for some reason it won't let me.
Okay.
However, I live 5 minutes.
Hold on just a second. I want to explain the reason we don't let people put on their videos is that we've been getting Zoom bombed by pornography. It's nothing to do with you. Please be patient and let us maintain
no problem.
that.
I'm happy not
thanks.
to have my video.
We've
Okay, go
allowed it.
ahead.
You can turn it on now.
All right,
It's
go
okay.
ahead, Donnie.
I wanted to say that I live 5 miles from Newark, and what MYLA described is very much what happened. I knew Ross's father. I read poetry and spoke with him. He gave a talk from my book on prejudice from Doubleday years ago. And so I know him well, and his father has pieces in my book on prejudice from Doubleday. And what happened was just amazingly horrible. And I'm really scared that this could keep on happening. So I think that we should all start carrying our birth certificates if it does any good. But we have to make a huge fight because the Supreme Court has said that habeas corpus must be observed. So he's going against the Supreme Court with this. And the other thing is these ICE agents are wearing masks. Since when did that happen? I don't even think the SS wore masks. What the heck's going on with that? So we have to protest that they shouldn't be allowed to wear masks. And I've started warning everybody to carry their birth certificates if that does any good, or copies of them, not the original. But I'm really worried about whether we're going to have a fair midterm, and I'm afraid the Democrats are depending way too much on a fair midterm because I believe, this is my last sentence, I believe the election was stolen. The popular vote wasn't with him, and never before in history have all the swing states been won by the same slim margin. There's a lot of fishiness, and I know you know about Vigilantes Inc. and so forth. So we have to be very careful. I don't depend on a fair midterm. And I'm afraid that's what the Democrats are doing. We have
Right.
to do something more than that. We have to start right now. Indivisible.org is flooding the Supreme Court with letters saying you must undo the immunity of the president against for all crimes. So we can be flooding the Supreme Court with calls and tweets and whatnot. They cannot continue with this immunity for the president. And we have to do something more than wait for the midterms. We have to work hard for impeachment, for the emoluments clause, everything else that we can possibly do. Thank you.
I agree. Well, one thing we know for sure is that we cannot count on the Democratic Party to safeguard our elections. And, as underscored by the day after this last election, when the Democratic candidate for president basically disappeared, as if she hadn't run, as if the Democrats had never had a candidate. And John Kerry did exactly the same thing in 2004, and Hillary Clinton did it again in 2016. So this is you raise a great point here, and we are going to have to safeguard this election because we know that we can't count on the Democratic Party to do it. Mimi German, you had your hand, and then Vina, if you can wait, we're going to go to Lee Felsenstein to cover the issue of tracking people who come to tracking is the wrong word, collecting the data from people who come to these rallies, and then we'll come back to you, Vina Colley, and then we're going to talk about the Pope, and then a plan for the future. Mimi German, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to give a super short history lesson that unfortunately most people didn't know or didn't believe because of the same thing that Sharon and Dick were talking about earlier. The history is Portland from 2015 through 2023, probably. And that is back in 2015, we started to have DHS on our streets coming in during what was before that. It was in 2012 during Occupy. And they did not have name tags. They did not have numbers. They had nothing that could identify themselves. Then later, we had weaponry coming out on the streets from the police that they were awarded through, actually it was through Obama, but they never could use it until Occupy happened. And these tanks with cops in uniform that were not cop uniforms, with no badges, no names, no numbers, were rolling through our streets. We were trying to get the word out, but what the press did at that time, and then later during Black Lives Matter, when the kidnapping started to occur from the feds and ICE agents, because we were protesting ICE way before now, was the same thing, coming out with no names and nothing like that. But these black cars would come around during Black Lives Matter protests, and they took this one guy. We all saw it. They just grabbed him, threw him in this Fed vehicle. And what he told us, fortunately, he wasn't sent to El Salvador. He told us that they just drove around. They didn't speak a word, not a word. He was scared to death. And so they practiced. We have been the practice ground for all of this in America, in Portland. And we've seen it come, but so what I was going to say with what Dick and Sharon were saying was the messaging that went out in the media was we were all Antifa, as if being anti-fascist was a crime. And therefore, because they attached the word Antifa with some heinous behavior, no one could get to no one could see the reality of what was happening, which was practice grounds for kidnapping, practice grounds for zero, for a complete police state that had no names and no badges.
Well, this is, we have 70 people still with us here.
Sluggo, real quick, was it the good, the bad, and the ugly, where they said badges? We don't need no stinking badges?
No, that was the Treasure of Sierra Madre.
Okay, Treasure of Sierra Madre.
We don't need no
stinking badges.
There you
Yeah.
go. We
So
actually had at the second Woodstock, we had T-shirts that said that. I had a T-shirt. I wish I still had it. We had 70
anyway,
people with us, 71.
anyway,
But thank
thanks
you.
Mimi for recounting the fascism. This was a trial run for fascism. We've seen militarized police with armored personnel carriers. And when you have unaccountable, anonymous policing, you have a police state.
Yep.
And I gotta say, this immigration issue is just total hokum. Immigrants have become the new Jews. And what Jews were to Hitler, the immigrants now are to Trump, and the same with trans people. Hitler did go after the gays and the Jehovah Witnesses. Whenever I talked about the Nazis in my classes, I invariably had a Jehovah Witness student who yelled at me for not talking about Hitler picking up the Jehovah Witnesses and the Slavs and a million gypsies. The immigrants now are for Trump, serving the purpose that the Jews served for Hitler. That's basically what's going on here. Every dictator needs a scapegoat, and these are Trump's. And here today, he made the whole thing a mockery by bringing in a bunch of white South Africans, as if somehow white South Africans are not immigrants that need to be chased down, but people of color coming from the other countries. They got to go to El Salvador. Pretty amazing. Listen, we need to segue now. This is an hour and 15 minutes we've been doing this. It's fantastic. We did have, and we're going to go Ruth Strauss and Vina Colley, but there is an issue that we raised, we've been raising over the weeks, and we have Lee Felsenstein on, who was brought to us by Tatanka Bricka, to discuss a solution, if one is needed, to making sure that the rallies that are drawing tens of millions of people here in the United States and around the world are followed up on properly. When in 2016, when Trump came in, there were these mega rallies, anti-MAGA rallies, where millions of people came, and everybody went home, and there was not a proper follow-up. Now, I'm being told today that there is. I want to call on MYLA RESON for that. But Lee Felsenstein, you raised the possibility that organizers of these mass rallies might print up business cards on, special colors that will have a QR code, and of course a union label, and that they need to be printed on hemp or recycled paper. But can you just give us to nail that down for us? And then I want to talk to MYLA RESON about her take on it, and maybe we can put out. I sent a draft memo, but maybe we can put out a memo suggesting the rally organizers do something like this. Lee?
Yeah, let me just claim 30 seconds for political theory. Political power is exercised by control of information channels. Blame that on me, but I think it's self-evident. And so what we're doing here, I put out originally what I wrote, I said reverse the media. I called it that. But it's not really reverse the media. It's a method of providing a reverse channel for the media. The media is still going out, but this is the channel for information to come back and come to the people who are putting out the information. Close the loop. Okay, and that's done using the infrastructure we've got, the internet, QR codes, and our cell phones, and we can all do it. What it needs is to be organized. The idea is then, by the way, the business cards came from a discussion here at an earlier meeting. I can't remember who told me about them.
Well, there was an issue raised. I want to explain. There was an issue raised that people were passing out leaflets, and that didn't work very well, and especially one in LA where the leaflets turned out to not have a union label. So what you came up with was a synthesis, which is a business card.
I didn't come up with it.
Well, whoever did, but whatever.
It could have been MYLA, but I don't remember who it was.
Okay.
So good for that. Good idea. My original idea is more or less unworkable as to using messages. Okay, so what's required is some core of organization that is there to organize others. That is to say, the various rallies will have their constituent organizations, and they need to each set up a website which at least sends people to the websites of those organizations or agglomerates it in one. That's up to them. But the QR codes contain the URL, the address of that website for that rally, for that day. Could be, it should stay up later because the business cards will circulate. That's one of the point, that they're small enough they don't get thrown away. So somebody has to help the people, who are going to do it, set up their websites. And you have to think about, once the information lands on that website, who I am and, here I am, what do you want from me? Okay, the website has to answer that question. Say, well, do you have this? Do you want that? You have ideas and so forth. Do you want to participate in election protection? Whatever it is. So that's going to be different at different locations. And I'm just saying that in order to make that happen consistently, some group has to be together to organize that. And I'm hoping that we can get together, or somebody can get together a group that will do that. And I will help, but I won't do the organization because that's not what I do well at all. All right, so that's what this is about.
So there needs to be a service available to people who are organizing these rallies, to, if they need it, to help them set up a website that can then be accessed
Those are done
by
the QR codes.
with a QR code. Sorry, go ahead, Dick. Go ahead.
Use an ordinary desktop word processing program. I use LibreOffice because it's free, but Word will do it also. To take that URL and say presto, and it turns out a QR code symbol. So people may need to have their hand held to doing that. That's what this organization would help with. So it's an organization to assist others at the various rallies, nexi, to get that act together.
Okay,
So
sounds good to me. Go ahead.
And the organizers also have to understand that they can't just sit there on a pot of information and say, oh, look at all the information we got, aren't we great? No, they have to do something with it. They have to, it has to feed out into activities. So now we can't make them do that, but we can inform them that that's what they need to do. The idea of being possession of information is not the same as information flow. So, if you're possessing the information and restricting it, you are constraining information flow. You are constraining the politics of whatever the situation is. You don't do that.
Okay, so I had the conversation with MYLA Reson. This is to me a great suggestion. And my daughter's calling me, so let me get this. Julie, let me call you right back. I'm in my Zoom call. Call mom. So I will we'll pass this on. Maybe we'll have something to offer in the next Zoom call. MYLA Reson, you wanted to jump in with comment on this, please.
Sure. So I guess I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. And I'm wondering whether we're kind of overcomplicating things and not recognizing the tremendous organizing that is already going on and the tools available for that organizing. There's something called Mobilize. The organizing is happening and has been happening kind of organically on a lot of different levels. I've been at rallies where you see someone say, text a certain number, and when you text that number, then they have your data. It just seems to me like when Harvey, who's now absent, or Sluggo, says that the follow-up hasn't been proper, Harvey, Sluggo, I'm glad you're back. I wonder what you mean by proper, because I've seen a lot of, I'm sorry, I've just seen so much extraordinary organizing that is happening now that I'm wondering whether we need another tool or we need another app, or because people already have ways of organizing and connecting with one another. So go ahead and
Well, I don't think there can never be, I don't mean to make any negative comments at this point. You've corrected all that. So there are rallies. We know it didn't happen in 2016, 17. There was no really appropriate follow-up to the gargantuan rallies that happened when Trump came in. So I think people are doing a much, according to you, which is fine with me, they're doing a much better job. I think this is a tool that we can offer that is part of the mix. You can never have too many tools. There's no comment needed on the negative side. But Lee and has a great genius here, and we have the tools to suggest that going forward, people who do rallies think about doing a business card with a QR code heading towards a preordained website. If that's already being done, wonderful. There's no reason not to put this suggestion out there. Lee,
No,
and Lee suggests
I don't know if that in particular hasn't been done, but what is being done and what is happening is that people are using different applications where they are gathering information and getting the word out. And that's how, I mean, if that were not occurring, then you wouldn't see, if a certain level of organizing wasn't already happening, you wouldn't see massive record turnout at all of these barnstorming rallies that AOC and Bernie have been conducting all over the country.
well, there's no argument here. It's fine. I'm thrilled to hear that. So I think that this is a good suggestion for some people who haven't thought about it to think about using business cards with QR codes. We also suggested, I think this was your idea, Lee, to do different colored business cards
Color codes
only
for that particular
at the rally, which would help us avoid counterfeiting.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Right.
If we want to put together a catalog of other things that people are doing, that's great too. I think this is just another contribution to the general pot, as it were. Lee, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I turnout is nice, but what do you do with the turnout? What happens from it? If nothing happens, then it's a demonstration. It's a show, and it's evanescent. It goes away, and people who participate feel good. People who watch say, gee, something must be happening. I must not have to do anything, and so forth. I'm not going to argue against turnout. I'm saying once you do, you got to basically close that information loop so the information comes back in and people are able then to do things because of it. That's what the goal is.
Right.
But Sluggo's right. There's no such thing as too many tools.
Right.
And then,
one thing we do know, leaflets are probably not a good idea. We saw that in LA. Union label, you got to have a union label. It's got to be on recycled or hemp paper. Especially, the cards, if they're on hemp paper, then once you do the QR code, you can smoke it. That would be good. And then, whatever other suggestions, and we'll put out a leaflet, or an email, whatever. We'll send it to Dick and Sharon and try and compile as many different ways as people can make the most of the upcoming round. We know there's going to be tens of millions of people in the streets of the United States this summer. That's a given. So what do we do with that? We need to be prepared. Anybody else? Myla, you're taking.
I have a thought.
Yeah, please.
One failing I have long seen, I think many of us have seen among us progressive, is we divide ourselves in smaller and smaller groups. Here in Los Angeles, there's dozens upon dozens of groups of very, very like-minded progressives who meet separately, who demonstrate separately, who barely talk to each other. Somehow we have to agree to have an overall organization that we all feed into that can do some of the thing that Lee says, that can direct mass movements, not just demonstrations, but actually take action. On the Republican side, Donald Trump's folks have done that in spades.
And if I could just dovetail what Dick is saying, Lee, you're saying some things that I think are extremely important that we often do not hear. We hear about, get the numbers out, get the people out, do the demonstration, but we don't hear about people coming together and truly working on a plan, an in-depth plan, a well-strategized plan. That we just don't do. And I'd like to see that.
We're actually about to jump in on that. Rob Call, who does Op-Ed News, is working on an overall plan, and we want to give him some time to start talking about that. We're at 3:30. We still have 66 people with us. We had someone who was going to speak, but go ahead. Lee, is there anything else you want to jump in?
I could
Good.
go
Okay.
on and on,
I'm
but
going
this is all I need.
What's that?
I could go on and on, but this is all I needed to say.
Good. So I'm going to redo my little draft memo here, and then we'll send it around and talk about it next week. So please come back, everybody. Ruth Strauss, Mike Hersh.
We had Vina Coley waiting for a while. I don't know if you want to try to get Vina Coley was here.
Oh,
trying
Vina,
to get
yes.
in.
And
Vina, you
Rob
want to
Call,
get back on? Raise your hand again, please.
Okay, Rob Call is with us. He's going to take over and talk to us about what you just mentioned, Dick and Sharon, which is a general long-term plan. But Ruth Strauss, Mike Hersh, Danny, and oh, there's Vina. Okay. Vina, do you want to talk about Portsmouth?
What I wanted to say is I understand what that mayor's going through because we've had a city councilman here going through the same thing. And I've been a whistleblower since 1983, and this is what I think this mayor is now, a whistleblower, and she needs to watch her back because they turn everybody who are for you against you, and then they have other people to do her part, and they say they do a better job, and so she's a whistleblower now, and
Well,
she needs
listen,
to watch.
that person you're talking about in Southern Ohio, if you want to tune us in, we'll have them on next week. We need to give visibility to elected and appointed officials who are being harassed, and that certainly goes for judges. We know that a judge, I don't even want to say it, judges have been really being seriously harassed and even assaulted at this point in time. So if you have a council member who's undergoing that in Ohio, let us know.
That's what's happened to me since 1983. When you speak out, you don't only have the company mad at you, but they make sure they get groups mad at you, they get people mad at you, and they make it sound like you have no credibility. And it doesn't matter if you broke every story at that plant or not, they downgrade you. And that's what they're going to do with her probably once this is all over with. And she thinks she wins, and then you don't actually win.
Well, put us in touch with her. We'll have her on next week, please. Okay, Vina, thank you. We really appreciate it. And Vina, in the belly of the beast there in Southern Ohio, been on the case for God knows how long. Thank you so much. We're honored with you, Vina, to have you with us. Ruth Strauss, then Mike, then Danny, and then we're going to go to Rob Call, unless anybody else wants to jump in real quick. Go ahead, Ruth. Ruth Strauss, Dr. Ruth.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Okay, great. I'm just bringing up something that Jan Goodman pointed out, who is a progressive lawyer and activist and wonderful person and friend to progressives. She pointed out that it is, as people on this webinar know, illegal for federal agents to follow illegal orders, basically. So if they are told to arrest people or whatever and act, or if they are doing what these people did in at Geo Group in New Jersey, whatever, all of that is illegal. And all of us should be calling our senators and representatives and telling them that it's illegal and it cannot stand, and it has to be stopped. And if it needs to be stopped in the courts by Congress or whatever, but it's important for actual policemen and military, et cetera. And as we remember, Trump 1 had people like Mark Milley who would tell him what was illegal. There is nobody to tell him what is illegal at this point. So she made a very compelling argument. It was on yesterday on John Crumshaw on KPFK, if anybody wanted to listen to it on Sunday. But in any case, I'm just, spreading the word of what she has pointed out, and we have to make sure that that is fought for. Thank you.
Well, it's the Nuremberg imperative, right? I mean, Roger Stone is a complete toady of Richard Nixon's. I made a statement that included his belief that the senator from Arizona should be executed. He said that. And then he came back and he attacked the so-called left and said, you omitted the fact that I said that they should be executed after a trial. This is a guy who actually had Nixon's face tattooed on his back. This is Roger Stone. And Nixon is the guy, of course, who said, if the president does it, it's legal, which is the total description of a dictatorship. So Ruth, thanks you for that. You're always great. Mike Hersh, Danny, and then we're going to go to Rob Call.
I'd like to defer to Danny. Go ahead. And I'll go after you.
Danny, go ahead.
If you're ready.
2 points. Harvey, I remember I knew you when we were fighting the Tomahawks in the harbor of New York. That's when I really knew you. And we finally defeated Indian Point. Anyway, I want to say 2 points. I noted that after Baraka was arrested, the mayor of Newark, all the environmental groups here in New Jersey, like empowerNewJersey.com, which is a coalition of 120 top environmental groups. I'm talking Sierra Club, Friends of the Earth. They all started joining the resistance because we're not paying attention to the climate. So what we need to do is to get all the environmental groups to coalesce with us in the resistance, because without a resistance, there's no saving the planet anyway. Number two, I'm really worried about him calling out martial law and the military. I know you've thought about that too, Harvey.
Yeah.
Sluggo. But what I'm thinking is we have to start getting everyone who has a relative in the current military or National Guard to be alerted that they must not start shooting civilians. It's against the Constitution, and they have the right not to do it, because we have to get the military to realize they do not have to follow the executive branch if it calls for shooting civilians. So we have to start organizing people in the military to be on our side. It's very important in case martial law is called. That's the 2 things I wanted to make a point about.
Thank
Get
you.
all of the environmental groups to join the resistance now. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important points. Really, totally agree with it. And we have to remember the Nuremberg principle. It holds today. Mike Hersh, and then we're going to go to Rob Call.
Yeah, I attended a meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders, Chief of Staff, and they are aware of the need to translate the huge turnout at these crowds into some kind of an organization, some kind of a beyond just a campaign, but a durable approach to changing American politics and American society from the grassroots up. And it's very clear that nothing else is going to work. Like Sluggo, I agree with what you said. We can't rely on the Democratic Party to do any leadership on this. Individual Democrats, maybe. But as an entity, the Democratic Party is a corporation. It's a very much status quo corporate entity. and it is not going to do what we need to have done to oppose fascism. Very similar to the Weimar Republic. It's, whether the will was there, the means and the ability were lacking. We need to take on this, faux populist movement that's been brewing from behind the scenes, from the Red Scare through John Birch Society attacks on the PTA, through the Goldwater, Reagan ascendancy, to W. Bush and Dick Cheney attacking the Constitution with the USA Patriot Act, and on and on. This has been a steady erosion of our rights and attack on the Constitution. It's going to take grassroots organizing from the bottom up, and Bernie is sensitive to this. He is, they're involved in discussions on texting a number to a number and getting people hooked up. They're just not sure what, how to close that circuit. What would be the immediate reaction to that? But they do understand, as Lee has been talking about, as Sluggo has been talking about, that we do need to do something with all these people coming out to rallies. They need to be galvanized into an organization, a grassroots organization.
Right. And there needs to be.
I just want to say real quick. One of the most exciting things that we've discussed with Lee is peer-to-peer, non-corporate, non-exploitative social media. A lot of people are spending a lot of time on social media. Polling shows that people who got their quote-unquote news from social media overwhelmingly voted for Trump. And I think that if we could replace the Facebooks, the X's, and these other social media apparatuses with a peer-to-peer people's social media, we could liberate people's minds. We could reach out, and we can do a lot of the local organizing that needs to be done. People need to get out of their cocoons, get out of their silos, meet with their neighbors, organize on a local basis, because nothing else is going to work.
Okay, very good. Well stated, Michael. Thank you so much. And now we're going to move. Dick and Sharon mentioned earlier the need for a long-term plan. Rob Call is the editor and founder of Op-Ed News and has been working on precisely that. Sent out a piece very interesting on how the right wing systematically built an apparatus to take over, a game plan for a fascist state. And Rob, do you want to continue from there, please? Rob Call.
Sure. I'm also the author of the book Bottom Up. You can't see it. Bottom Up Revolution. Basically, shortly after I started Op-Ed News over 20 years ago, I wrote a series of articles about the problem that the right has an ecosystem and an infrastructure of think tanks, of media, of development, of organizations that develop people to be candidates and judges and TV personalities. And this was initiated over 50 years ago by Lewis Powell, who created what is now called the Powell Memo. He did it at the behest of the US Chamber of Commerce, and the goal was to create an ecosystem, an infrastructure of organizations that would develop policy and then promote it. And they've been doing it for over 50 years, closer to 55 years. Now, the left doesn't have anything like that. Now, can I share a page with everybody?
I don't know, Steve. I sent it to Steve, our engineer.
Yeah, you can share it. Are you capable?
I got it on my. How do I do it?
Yeah, you hit the green button at the bottom of the screen. Make sure you have the page selected before you move off the Chrome and go to the share button.
Okay, it's selected.
All right.
Share.
This must be it.
There you go.
So basically,
just so everybody understands, Lewis Powell was from Virginia. He worked for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Richard Nixon put him on the U.S. Supreme Court, where he helped to kill all attempts to restrain corporate spending in our elections. And he did not write the Citizen United opinion, but he did write Bellotti and was also part of Buckley. These are the major Supreme Court decisions that prevented the public from restraining corporate spending in our elections, which is the root of all our problems, as far as I can tell at this point. You know, Donald Trump is what you get when you have unlimited corporate spending buying our elections. And this is where Lewis Powell is the cornerstone. So go ahead, Rob.
So basically, he was a corporate attorney, and he came up with this project, this memo, to develop this infrastructure consisting of think tanks, legal groups, media outlets, and academic networks, or aimed at federal and at state levels. And that was over 50 years ago. And 20 years ago, I wrote 10 articles about it because the left had still never done anything like it. And it's like the left has plans for the next cycle of elections. And lately, after Project 2025 came out from the Heritage Foundation, which is one of the original organizations that was part of this Powell memo output, I realized that we still don't have it. It's 50 years. And so here's a list of some of the things that it has cost us. Dominance, and basically the left's failure to build a comparable ecosystem has led to systemic losses across multiple domains, including economic and labor policy, the domination of neoliberal economics, corporate-aligned think tanks. They normalized deregulation, privatization, and austerity, eroding New Deal and Great Society frameworks, erosion of labor power, regressive tax policy. We used to be, 92%? Now what is it, 21%? Corporate constitutional rights, corporate citizenship, expansion of Citizens United. I mean, I can read this, or you can look at the list.
Go ahead and finish reading it. Go on through.
Okay. Federalist society dominance, no progressive equivalent to this 70,000 member legal network that shaped the 6-3 Supreme Court majority, media and narrative control. They have built a media ecosystem that just dwarfs what we have. And then policy implementation gaps. The right has ALEC, which literally writes legislation and hands it over to legislators that they directly submit. Infrastructure decay, healthcare costs. If you look at the right, they don't want anybody to have healthcare. And it goes on and on. There are so many different ways that the left has been at a huge disadvantage. And that's because what the right does is they have long-term planning. They have planning for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and 50 years. We don't have that. I did research on the funding for these things. It's hundreds of millions of dollars a year that the right has. But get this, the left gets even more. The problem is the left is all siloed. So you've got the Southern Poverty Law Center, and you've got the ACLU, and you've got the NAACP, and there are a lot, and then the Center for American Progress. Now, 20 years ago, I stopped writing those articles because the Center for American Progress came out. And I thought, well, maybe this will be the beginning of it. And I don't want to go after them too much, but it ended up that they never really developed an infrastructure or ecosystem. They just became like another big think tank. And it was really a project of the Clintons. The first director of it was John Podesta, who became her campaign manager. Now it's Neera Tanden, and there are some. It hasn't done the job. So we need to make this happen. And when I talk to politicians about this, what I hear is, "Oh yeah, we need to do this, but first we have to take care of 2026." And this is what's been happening for 50 years. And so the left has never done it. So what I'm trying to put together is a proposal. I've been working with Chuck Pinocchio and some others on describing what it would look like, identifying ways to get funding for it, identifying first steps and first goals, identifying a core collection of values and issues by distilling down a bigger collection of them. And we need this. We desperately need this. All the politicians that I talk to agree, yeah, we need it, but they're so focused, and I think it's what the problem is with the Democrats. They're so focused on the next election that nothing happens, and this has never developed, and it really could. I really believe that there's the funding out there, and it doesn't just have to come from the United States, because this would not be an election project primarily. This would be looking at policy and how to get policy changed, and looking at how to develop people who could become candidates or judges. But that's another step.
Well, also, the Democrats, they focus on the election, and then when the elections are stolen, they're nowhere to be seen. I mean, we can make a very credible case that the 2000 election was stolen in Florida, 2004 in Ohio, 2016 in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and 2024 through some very sophisticated computerization attacks on the swing states. But this, Rob, is really, really interesting. And Dick and Sharon, do you want to jump in and comment on this?
Yes, hi, thanks. It's Sharon. Rob, everything that you were just saying, about the Powell memo and about Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, I've been on that same search right along with you. The LA Progressive has existed for 18 years. And what I see is what you've seen is that the right has nothing that is equivalent to what the left has, nothing that is equivalent to what the right has done. And if you just look at the Powell memo, which is, by the way, is only 8 pages long, if you read the Powell memo, you will see that it's a roadmap. It was a roadmap for the beginning of Project 2025. It's a roadmap to all of the things that we're seeing played out today. It was written in 1971, just before Lewis Powell became a United States Supreme Court justice. But I kept asking myself, why do we not see an equivalent on the left? And I've come to some theories of my own. So one of my theories is that on the right, they're more aligned again for power and for money. And so they come together around a very central issue. We're more idealistic, and we're trying to find social justice and peace. And it's really difficult for us to stay together on those notions alone. But there is one thing that keeps us apart. And Heather McGhee wrote a book called The Sum of Us. I talk a lot about the centrality of race, ethnicity. And so the left is comprised of people of a lot of different ilks. And we can't come together because we have been naturally taught in the United States that it's just okay to live in segregated lives and to segregated world. But I think that disunity is what weakens us more than anything else. And the right just didn't have that. And the right was responding. The Lewis Powell memo was a response to the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the anti-war movement, all of that in 1971. He wanted to bring the Chamber of Commerce in and bring corporations in to rein in on the democracy that was beginning for the first time in the United States history. Democracy was beginning to flower, and he wanted to put an end to it. And he was very successful at doing that because we have all these desperate groups. That's all. And I would love to hear more about what you're talking about, Rob.
Well, one of the things that they did, one of the things that they did to keep us divided and to cripple the left in an ideological way was the drug war, which also came in 1971. And Richard Nixon launched this attack on marijuana and whatever, and claimed that drugs were the #1 problem in America, and arrested 41 million people over the next 40 years. 1 million people a year were
Yep, that's
arrested, and predominantly young people and people of color.
Yep.
And that was a big part of it. I will say one thing in the opposite direction, which is on energy. As an energy policy, we do have a blueprint. It came about in 1975 when we first started nuclear power. We first started fighting nuclear power in Western Massachusetts. There was a fair, the Toward Tomorrow Fair at UMass, and a vision was launched for a totally green-powered Earth. Now they are using nuclear power to divide people, and with this horrible lie that nukes can help fight global warming. It's ridiculous. And we have a lot of Democrat governors now supporting nuclear power, as did Biden. But on the left, we do have a pretty coherent vision, I believe, of a totally green-powered Earth. So that's one chunk of territory that we have a pretty clear a mechanical vision to fill in. We even got Pete Seeger to write an anthem for us. So that's a piece of it. And by the way, the green power movement has been extremely successful in stopping nukes and promoting renewables. We're facing a big setback right now, a real counterattack, but we would expect that. So maybe that's kind of a model that we can throw in the mix, but just wanted to put that in myself. Rob, did you want to say something? We'll go to Mike Hersh.
Yeah, well, Sharon, years ago, Reverend Al Sharpton was running for president, and he said that organizing Democrats was like herding cats. And he may not have been the first to say it, but it's a big challenge. But I've been doing research, and there are a lot of issues that 60, 65, 70% of the population are all agree on. And we need to put them all together, and we need to identify them and work on them. And that's such an important part of this. There's a lot to making this happen. And I'm looking for people who are interested in getting involved in working with this or being advisors on it. Over the years, I've run a series of different conferences that were first of their kind. And each time I would bring in top speakers, and they would help me to bring in other top speakers. And I never paid any of them. I might cover some expenses for them, like a room, but they didn't get paid. And the way that I got them to do that was what I called the bandwagon effect. You get good people, you get good names, and you build something that people are attracted to. Now, one other thing that I think is really important, Trump, and I think mostly a lot of the right, they don't like soft power. There's the stick, there's the carrot, and there's honey. The stick is weapons. The carrot is money, and the honey is attraction. It's seduction, and the power that is gotten from that can be very strong. One way that the United States has had that is by making movies and music that people love. So it's culture. Another way is by building hospitals and bridges and things like that help people. Now, I really believe that because Trump is a malignant narcissist sociopath, he can't trust people, and soft power requires trust. So he's looking at the hundreds of billions of dollars in soft power assets that we have, and he's throwing them away entirely. And I think that if the left can put together an infrastructure and an ecosystem like this, we're going to blow away the right, because we have feminist power. We have the feminine way of seeing things. We can embrace indigenous values. We can go bottom up and avoid hierarchy. There are so many ways that we can make magic happen that I think that if we can get this off the ground, then we can turn it around very quickly and make it very powerful. So one of the things I'm here for is to look for people who want to let me know they want to get involved. It's a little early for looking for money, but that would always help too. There's the initial 6 months is going to require hiring some people who have expertise in law and organization and leadership.
Well, that's amazing. That's great stuff. I'm going to Mike Hersh in 1 minute. There's one thing I do want to add to the mix, which is religion. And you know, these guys have a very strong right wing. I don't have to tell anybody religious infrastructure here. I think they're really frustrated by this new pope, the choice of this new pope. But if you look at Steve Bannon, you know, he's Opus Dei, which is Myla's been talking about it. Everybody should read, by the way, the Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code is a really radical book about the church. You can pass it off as a popular novel, but it is a very strong feminist doctrine, the Da Vinci Code. And one of the things I've come to conclude, and then I'll move to Mike, but you know, we can't, the Powell Memorandum, I'm not sure it mentioned the church. And here we have Trump pretending to be a Christian. Oh my God! But you know, a lot of this is coming from the Book of Revelations, and which is these guys want an apocalypse. And I'm starting to conclude that one of the sources of support for nuclear power is that there is a very powerful faction in the so-called Christian nationalist movement that wants the world to blow up. For God's sakes, it's prophecy. And some of that stuff we have to take really seriously. Do we have a left-wing church to counter the Catholic Church?
Yes.
Well, what is it?
Oh, the Episcopal Church, left wing. The Methodist Church is left wing. There's several of them, and I can.
Well, we also had Pope Francis, who was, you know, what he was. Anyway, let's talk about that further. I couldn't resist throwing that in. Mike Hersh, Mimi, and then Melissa. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's great to see my good friend Rob call. I really appreciate this campaign you're working on, and you're working with another great friend of mine, Chuck Pinocchio. So I know with you two guys at the helm, it's going to be optimistic, it's going to be systematic, it's going to be very effective. And I want to thank you, Sharon, for bringing up the fact that this was a Chamber of Commerce led attack. This is an agent of big business who was rewarded for firing up big business. The gist of the Powell memo, and I urge everybody to read it. A lot of people have heard about it. I only read it really closely, relatively recently, and then I wrote a blog about it. I put a link to to my blog in the chat. What he said, what Powell said was, business people are being disrespected and distrusted and don't have any power or influence. What he meant to say is they didn't have exclusive power and influence. He was of the perspective that this is a country of the rich, by the rich, and for the rich. And for that, he was rewarded with a seat on the US Supreme Court. And from there, he started a campaign in the US Supreme Court where it was highly politicized, specifically against voting rights, specifically against campaign finance. And once they, the US Congress hammered out carefully constructed compromises to limit some of the flood of money into our politics. And the Supreme Court, with a series of completely unfounded political decisions, just strictly political partisan decisions, threw out bipartisan campaign finance reform and let loose the floodgates. So what we have right now are not elections, we have auctions, and it goes to the highest bidder. And when the Chamber of Commerce and all of the extremely wealthy people and businesses that they represent can set up all these dark money organizations, they're rigging primaries now. If you're a progressive and want to curtail the fascistic rise of wealth and oligarchy in this country, they will flood your primary with dark money and knock you out. And they won't necessarily talk about specifically what you're campaigning on. They'll make it out that you're some kind of a lunatic or a crackpot or a danger to the United States. They've gone after Jamal Bowman. They knocked him out. They went after Cori Bush. They knocked her out. They went after Ilhan Omar. She was elusive and was able to maintain her seat. They've gone after Ayanna Pressley. They've gone after Rashida Tlaib. And a lot of these are racially based campaigns. A lot of them are sexist based campaigns, because of course they are. So what Rob is talking about is this massive infrastructure that came about under the guise of the Chamber of Commerce. And this is something interesting, kind of a callback to what we were talking about with Mayor Heidi. I went on their official city website, and they've prominently mentioned the Chamber of Commerce on their government website. This is a melding of big business and government, which is what Mussolini called fascism, the bundling of big business and government. And Mussolini said fascism is better referred to as corporatism. That's what we've been fighting. And a lot, the Democratic Party has largely been asleep at the switch. The mainstream Republicans have been overwhelmed by these extremely wealthy corporatists, and then they whip people into a frenzy, whether they call it the Tea Party, the John Birch Society, MAGA, whatever. It has a lot of different names. They're brown shirts. These are people who think money and power should be dominant over democracy. They don't want to be concerned about being fair to women and people of color, immigrants, any minorities. They will scapegoat people. It's the exact Mussolini Hitler playbook, and we have no excuses to not know what we're seeing. It's happening right under our noses. So thanks, Rob, thanks Dick and Sharon, thanks Chuck Benaki, and thanks Sluggo for calling out this is what it is. And thank you, Steve Caruso, for calling people Nazis. They are literally Nazis. This is not hyperbole. That's the playbook they're following.
So one thing that I think is really important is there are going to be businesses, and there are going to be people with religion. What this infrastructure and ecosystem needs to do as part of its work is identify ways to attract them to our side, which is what the right-wing ecosystem has done.
Right.
It's not like they're just going to disappear. We have to make it work for them. We have to identify strategies that reward businesses for doing good. And we have to help Christians and Jews who are backing what Israel is doing in Gaza. We've got to get them to see that there's a better way. And that takes think tanks and organizations and promotion of ideas. And that's what we need to put together. Right. For long term, and I think that it will be possible to bring together the power of the organizations that are on the left. I do believe it's possible. Somebody just mentioned the Empowerment New Jersey with 200 ecological groups. That's amazing. I love to hear that. That's what needs to happen throughout the country with all the different organizations.
And in terms of the money, I don't want to, but the conversion of renewables is the #1 business issue, and that's where the money is going to be, and that's a cutting edge for us. I do want to. This is an eye roller, but the precursor to Lewis Powell's 1971 memo was actually the 1791 memo called "Report on Manufacturers," written by Alexander Hamilton. And if you ever want to see the origin of the corporate state, go back and look at that memo that Alexander Hamilton wrote in 1791. It's a direct parallel, and it could be of interest to some of you. But Mimi, thank you, Mike. That was quite brilliant. We're down. We have only 13 minutes to go. We do end at 4:20, so everybody can go toke up in California. But we will, Rob, I hope you can come back next week. Dick and Sharon, of course, you'll be regulars, and we want to continue this very important conversation, which is not happening anywhere else, I don't believe. And Tatanka, you, of course, are part of this. Lee, everybody, this is a very, very big deal. We still have 59 people with us, for God's sakes. Melissa, did I lose someone? Did somebody jump away?
I think, yeah, I was.
Mimi,
yeah,
go
I was
ahead,
unmuted
Mimi.
to go. I thank you to speak. I just wanted to say really quickly, sorry, I've been called away for different household things, but I hope the money aspect has been mentioned as well. And, Senator Sanders is saying this in his speeches, how there's been over, I'm going to forget what it is now. Is it now 75 trillion has gone upward to the elites since the lockdowns? And previously it was 50 trillion, which was documented by the Rand Corporation. Thank you so much. That's all I wanted to say. It's all about the greed and the grift as well. And that's why we can't have nice things in this country. Basic needs met, such as Medicare for all, child care for all, elder care for all. It's just Medicare for all is cradle to grave. Thank you so much, Sluggo. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. You nailed it there. 60 people still with us after got 2 hours and 10 minutes. Melissa and then Chuck, then Betty, then Lynn, and we'll probably be out of time by then. Go ahead, Melissa, if you will. Are you unmute? Let me unmute you. Go ahead. And then Chuck.
Thank you for having me. I just have one quick question for Rob. We were always if you went to school before 1954, the Pledge of Allegiance always said, "One nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." And so how do we get the ACLU? How do we turn this religious thing around? Because not even Thomas Jefferson would allow the Episcopal Church to be the national church. How do we protect separation of church and state? Because this isn't right even for a republic.
Thank you for that, Melissa. We appreciate that. The separation of church and state is a very big deal. And, the Supreme Court now has a case in front of it to allow public funding of sectarian religious schools. So we're going to have to be very, very careful about that. It's a big deal. Thank you. Let's move on because we're almost out of time. Melissa, come back with us next week. Chuck Panaccio, you're a co-conspirator here with Rob Call. Jump in, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very brief. I just want to point to another important roots discussion here. People may be familiar with Democracy in Chains, the deep history of the radical right. This is Nancy McLean's exploration of really the origin story. This picks up on the thread that Sharon mentioned, which is it follows immediately on the heels of the Brown decision. It occurs at George Mason University. A young economist, 32 years old, a white supremacist, a corporatist, and a Christian nationalist. That's fascism right there. The three cornerstones: Christian nationalism, white supremacy, state corporatism. We're spending too much time talking only about the money and the oligarchs. We've got to talk about how race and religion has been weaponized in this country, and it's being manipulated by the billionaire class. And that's sort of my motivation with Rob. I've been teaching, about history and fascism in the classroom. I'm an historian too, like you, Sluggo, and I think it's just really important that we have that more rounded understanding of what it is that we're dealing with. And I've written an article, it's posted in the chat, called The Three Cornerstones of Fascism. And the other problem, I think we all know, but it bears repeating, is the nonprofit industrial complex. One of the reasons why the left is so divided, Rob made reference to it, siloed, but it's the money that corrupts the original vision of so many organizations that hold them back from actually moving in a progressive direction and connecting with one another. So Rob and I are building out an infrastructure plan that is very self-consciously, very clearly going to build walls of separation here. We're not going to allow money to corrupt. Anybody who brings money into this project has got to understand that they cannot influence the direction of our justice for all vision. So we vision for future in 50 years forward, and then we reverse engineer how we understand that we got there in terms of building ourselves together. And then I work primarily in the healthcare space. I'm the organizer of One Pair States, the president. But we, as an organization, recognize the intersection of all justice issues. So I'm grateful for your having us on the program today, and look forward to people supporting us. I'll drop our contact information in the chat again. Thank you so much. And Rob, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
We'll continue this next week in the second hour. This is getting deep into it. I do want to suggest a fourth cornerstone, which is gender. I mean, this is very much I believe the most important transition in world history right now is the transfer of dominance from men to women. And this really needs to be discussed, and it's certainly part of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is nothing if not a male-dominated attempt to keep power.
And Sluggo, that I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because the Nazis had a slogan for women.
Yes, KKK.
KKK. They wanted women to be raising children, working in the kitchen, and working in the church.
Kinder, Kirch, and kitchen.
That's right.
Was it.
And
Kinder, Kirch, and kitchen.
And subservient in all of those regards.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, any society or any movement that discounts women and how brilliant and wonderful women are is doomed to fail. So at least we have that in mind.
And we need a real psychological analysis of the right wing. It clearly goes beyond money. What are we're dealing with psychopaths here. And we're dealing with sociopaths, and we're dealing with people who have a religion based on the book of Revelations that welcomes an apocalypse. We have to get to the psychological root here of what's really going on. It's way beyond just money. And
daddy issues.
Well, who knows? I don't know. We're gonna have to figure it out. You're partly daddy issues, but what the heck? Betty Kisilov and then Lynn Feinerman. I think we're gonna be done. Go ahead, Betty. Oh, you're not muted. Unmute you here, and then Lynn, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree, and I throw out the word patriarchy on steroids. But what I'm actually calling to suggest is the Earth Charter. Please go to earthcharter.org. It's a declaration of fundamental principles for building a just, sustainable, and peaceful global society. And it is, was it Rob who was mentioning a soft law?
Soft power.
Okay, well, a soft law instrument that provides an ethical foundation for the ongoing development of environmental and sustainable, but we now use the word, resilient or regenerative development. And it's a framework for the discussion. It's that has been going on for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Sharon, when you were bringing up the alternative, an alternative to the Powell Amendment. It's on a different level, though. It's on a level, as Einstein says, we can't change things on the level of thinking that we created them. So we've got to go to the framework. I'm trying to say things too quickly. Please go to earthcharter.org.
Okay, we'll come back. Thinking out, Benny, come back next week in the second hour, and we'll go through this in deeper detail. Rob and Chuck and Nancy and Dick and Sharon and everybody, I hope you can all come back next week. And we need to dig deeper in this. I'm not sure how many people are actually having this level of discussion. But I'm serious. We need to look at the religious and psychological makeup of the right wing. We have got to get on top of it.
Harvey, one last thing. If people are interested in getting involved in this, my email is happier, HAPPIER @gmail.com. happier@gmail.com.
Thank you for that. And Dick and Sharon are at laprogressive.com. Chuck, Lynn Feinerman, Chuck, you'll put yours in the chat. Lynn Feinerman, you'll be the last. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I noted that MYLA had said she was hoping that we'd get to the Pope and Opus Dei. Opus Dei, speaking of the problem with Catholicism, the extreme religious patriarchy, and women, literally has women slaves all over the world. They recruit them, and then they keep them forever without paying them a dime. And they do all the work for all the males who have been recruited because they're large earners. Opus Dei in itself brings together the corporate oligarchy and the extreme right-wing religious game. They embody both. And I'm wondering, we never really got to the Pope. I'm wondering, it was bruited that Pope Francis was actually having a vicious infight with Opus Dei. And he did various moves to try to rein them in. I'm wondering where Pope Leo stands with regard to that. It's interesting to me that the person with the biggest bucks for Catholicism is named Leonard Leo. I wonder if Leo was chosen not necessarily for the social justice or supposed social justice Pope, but as a gesture of gratitude to Leonard Leo.
Well, I hope that's not the case. Let's take this up next week. We are still with 55 people after all this time. We are the call apparently with the longest attention span. Thank you everybody for this. This was really, as always, intriguing and powerful. We will. I'm going to finalize the memo with MYLA and Lee on the business cards and the QR codes, so we'll have something to pass around on this. Lee. Thank you for all your input on that. Rob, Call, and Chuck, we'll look to see more of the beginnings of your draft. And everybody, it's just about 4:20 in California time. It's time to go out and toke up. We'll see you next week at the Gree call. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering, Mike Hersh for co-convening, and Tatanka, thanks for being with us.
Thanks,
everybody.
Harvey.
Thank you. No nukes, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care.
No nukes and no Nazis.
They go hand in hand.
You got to talk to Sharon about that 420 stuff. I don't know, but